Awesome. I can kick it off here. So my name's Jenna. I work at Bucketlist Rewards. I'm a customer success manager. And honestly, today I just hope that you walk away with some easy, digestible takeaways and things that you can reflect on, whether you currently have a recognition program in place or you're looking to implement one. There's something here for everyone today. I also really want it to be interactive, so please feel free to add any comments or feedback in the chat, share your different ideas, and yeah, we're gonna have a lot of fun today. I'll pass it over to you, Rod.
Thanks, Jenna. I'm Rodrigo. I'm the manager for customer success. So I get the pleasure to work with all of our amazing customers, with Jenna and the team as well. And yeah, I just want to double down with Jenna. We love to make these sessions super engaging. So please feel free to put in the chat any questions, comments, insights that you could share with us. We also learn a lot from our customers and in this
Yeah.
webinar. So yeah, we're gonna have fun today. So
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Rod. Okay, well, I'm going to kick things off today. So, as Becca already kind of spoke to, this year's theme is growing gratitude. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. Culture and recognition programs, they grow from, they don't grow from intention. It grows from daily actions. And so before we jump into things, I want to start with a simple idea. So culture works a lot like a garden, and it doesn't grow from occasional attention. It's going to grow from those everyday consistent actions. And so this is exactly how recognition should work. The challenge is that most recognition programs, they're built more around, bigger moments and not necessarily the little habits. And so things like annual awards, formal nominations are great. It's not to dismiss them. It's just they're not enough to shape that day-to-day behavior. And so what ends up happening is employees don't consistently engage. And, it's not because they don't care. It's more the program isn't part of their normal everyday workflow. And so to give you a specific example, if recognizing someone is going to require an employee to log into separate systems, fill out forms, or like wait for any approval process or a very specific time of year, most people just aren't going to do it. It's not going to be as engaging. It's going to be kind of like an afterthought. And so, if recognition takes a few seconds in a tool that somebody's already using, it becomes something that happens more naturally. And so, today we're going to walk through what actually makes recognition programs work and kind of what all this looks like and how to design something that's simple, visible, and used consistently across your organization. You can go to the next slide, Rod. Awesome. Okay, so quickly building on that idea, this is really the core of everything we're talking about today. Again, culture working like a garden, not growing from occasional attention, but daily watering. And so it shouldn't be something that happens once a year or only during big moments. It's something that we want to happen consistently. And so, if someone is living out, like to give an example again, like if someone is living out a company value, like stepping up to help teammates or going above and beyond for a customer, that getting recognized right away helps reinforce that behavior for everyone, not just the person, but everyone that can see it. So the visibility is really key here. And so over time, those small moments add up, and that's what actually shapes the culture, not those once a year awards. So when we're looking at this in practice, this doesn't mean that leaders need to recognize somebody every single day. That's not really scalable for a lot of organizations. It's just like, it's not realistic. And so it just means designing a program that allows recognition to happen across the organization, and not just from the top down. So the goal is to give everyone, every employee the ability to participate. So recognition becomes something that happens naturally between peers, across teams and at all levels. So it's not just reliant on one person. It really becomes a whole team effort. And this is where we see more consistency and engagement and a little bit more fun with it as well. And so instead of relying on managers to call things out, which is really key and it's important, but when you enable the team where anyone can quickly recognize somebody like a colleague for jumping in to help on a project or supporting a customer, this is where we see the consistency. This is where we see employees engaging and everybody participating because it's not dependent on just one person. It becomes kind of like a part of how the organization operates. And so if we just go to the next slide, I think, Rod, I'm going to pass it over to you.
awesome. Thank you, Jenna. And here's where we're gonna get a little bit spicier. So The problems that most recognition programs have that we normally see. So we want to take a step back and look at where these problems start to break down. And as we go through these, think about your own organization. If you have your own program, think about your own program. Where do you see yourself? So I'm just gonna go one by one. First off, programs that only have annual awards, and that was it. Only annual awards. Manager only programs, disconnected HR portals, complex nominations, and low visibility. Most programs are designed for moments of recognition, specific moments like annual awards. You hit your 10-year mark, you receive an award, that's it. But they're not designed for habits. And that's going to be a keyword that we're going to talk about today, habits. Complexity also is the enemy of engagement in any software out there. If employees don't see the program, effectively doesn't exist. So the key piece is the simpler, then it will be the better. So now I'm going to go one by one and just chat a little bit about these problems that we normally see. So for annual awards, we see this all the time. Companies invest heavily in annual awards, and those moments are great. They should be part of a program. I'm not saying that it shouldn't. It's kind of like a mandatory thing to have annual milestone awards, onboarding milestone awards for a program. But on their own, they're not enough. Because if you ask an employee, if you have a program with only annual awards, if you ask the employee, what was recognized last week, most of the times they won't be able to tell you because either they just received one recognition period throughout the year, or there's not a lot of movement in that program, because it's only for those awards. And that's really the gap there. Recognition is happening, but it's not consistent enough to actually shape a behavior. You're just shouting out somebody whenever they hit a milestone, which is very important, but that consistently is not there. Right? The next one, manager only programs. So this is another common challenge when recognition only comes from managers. And I'll just pause there because I'm not saying that, for example, if you have a program where you need to assign budgets for people to give out, this doesn't mean that managers and employees need to have budgets. No, I'm just saying that everybody should be able to recognize whether it's with a budget or without a budget, but just giving that flexibility for people to give out a recognition. If you only allow for managers to give out recognitions in your programs, you're relying on a very small group, like 10% of your workforce maximum, probably. And they're the ones that are going to drive all the recognition across the entire organization. And even great managers don't see everything, because it's physically impossible to do that. When you open up recognition to everyone, that's when you start to scale and it start to become more natural. If I'm a manager and I have 30 direct reports, it's physically impossible for me to see everything that's happening with my team members. And that's perfectly fine, right? So if you have programs that allow to show that visibility where Jenna can recognize her colleagues directly, and I'm able to see those type of recognitions, I can then go in and actually engage with those recognitions because I had no clue that Jenna did something amazing or that the team member did something amazing. So that's key whenever you start building your program. Yes, budgets can be assigned specifically to based on your needs, but allow recognition for everybody on your company. Disconnected HR portals. This is probably one of the biggest ones that we see. If your program requires employee to log into a separate system, that is going to generate a little bit of pushback. So simple things like, for example, enabling single sign-on. They don't need a separate email. They use the same company email that they have, allowing them to access through a different portal, not an actual password logging in. Things as simple. If you have an HRIS system, let's say Workforce or Dayforce, eh, eh, in the actual portal itself, you can create little buttons to redirect you to the program itself, to the software itself. Having those like accessibility, like shortcuts to the programs, those things go a long way. Uh, so yeah, if you have disconnected HR portals, you are already lost most of the engagement on the program. It's not that people don't care about the program, it's just not part of their day. So just make sure to think about an employee. Where are they every single day? try to look for those cues whenever you start designing these programs. Complex nominations, as simple as the longer it takes to recognize someone, the less likely it is to happen, right? We have very short attention spans. We have very busy schedules. So it needs to be quick and efficient for you to actually go in and be able to recognize somebody. Even people with the best intentions won't go through multiple steps or long forms because it's just you have a job to do, right? Also, right? So you need to make it easy. And depending on the industry, even if you're in a hospital, you won't stop to give out a recognition if there's an emergency going on, right? So recognition has to be quick and easy, or if not, it will just get skipped. And finally, visibility. If recognition is invisible, it will not reinforce anything, right? And I made the example, Jenna giving out a recognition to a team member that I had no clue about that, right? About a specific task that was accomplished or a metric that was met. I had no clue about that, but I was able to see that. So that visibility is when you start having a more engaged environment within your program. So yeah, if it's not visible, it won't reinforce anything. It becomes a private moment instead of something that shapes culture across your team. The real impact comes when others can see it and be inspired by it. Also, I'm a huge believer that recognition has to be meaningful, and by meaningful, not just thanks, Jenna, you're amazing. Okay, yes, Jenna is amazing, and I want to thank her, but why? Because you probably have 2,000 people reading that recognition, so you want to have a little bit more context on what's going on there. So, if we simplify all of this, it really comes down to one thing. If recognition requires effort, it doesn't happen. It will not happen. What we consistently see is that recognition, often in programs, lives outside of the employee experience, right? It exists, but it's built in a completely separate world from the employee or the staff member actually works in. And the moment something feels like extra effort, it's where you're going to start seeing that participation will start to drop off. So, to close this, the goal is not to build a complex program that it has to have everything set up for it to be perfect and avoid all of these problems that I just told you. No, it's just you need to build a program that will remove the friction wherever you can. So that's the idea of the whole session today, so that you have visibility of these small things that you can implement. And I'll pass it on to you, Jenna.
Yes, awesome. Thank you. Also, I'd love to hear in the chat too if you currently have a recognition program in place or you're working on one. What are some successes you're finding with your program or some exciting things, or what are some challenges that you face as well? Would love to hear if anyone wants to share. Awesome. And what I would also add to that, Rod, is it's also great for seeing that cross-functional engagement as well. So it's like I can see that my colleague was working with marketing and they're shouting each other out. Like it's really great for that cross-functional visibility as well as, direct team visibility. Okay, because I like to ground things in the real world before we kind of start talking about solutions. Let's kind of like ground things in reality. The workplace reality looks very different today. So recognition programs, they need to work across all different environments, not just one. So it's not a one size fits all. That approach would usually fall short. But if you think about remote and global teams, for example, people are working across different time zones. There's very little face-to-face interaction, and recognition just kind of becomes one of the few ways to create visibility and connection. For frontline employees, for another example, they don't necessarily have regular access to a computer or email, so recognition programs could more easily become invisible. Another environment, those shift-based environments, teams may never overlap, which makes it even harder to recognize people organically. And also just the visibility is gone there because of all the overlap that happens. The key takeaway here would be, if your program doesn't meet employees where they are at, it's just not going to get used. And so, to make this more real, let's just take a closer look at some of these environments on the next slide.
So,
Okay, we have a healthcare example here for you, Rod, that you're
yeah,
gonna share.
so I was in Temecula, California a few weeks ago, supporting a healthcare customer launch, an actual hospital down there. Being in that environment really put things into perspective. I don't know if anybody has seen The Pit, Grey's Anatomy. It's real. It's like that with the drama, with even more drama included. So, yeah, it's a very fast-paced environment, high pressure. People are focused on patient care, not logging into systems, or even people didn't want to talk to me. And it's perfectly fine. Like, of course, there's emergencies going on, right? So when we think about what actually works in that specific environment, the hospital in California, right? You need to think of pillars. And I wanted to put together two completely different industries and the pillars that we look at those for the program. So first off, mobile first. The phone is the only thing they consistently have access to and the medical equipment they're using. You know that thing to hear your heart? I don't know what that's called. But yeah, the medical equipment that they use and their phone. That's the only thing they have access to. So that's your key thing you need to look at. How can they use the program using their phone, right? And the other one is immediate. If recognition doesn't happen in the moment, it will not happen at all. If they need to log in, wait for an email, send a password, authenticate, all that, they will simply not do it because they have 200 emergencies piled up. They need to react. They need to, they're saving lives. So it's completely fair for that to happen, right? So it needs to be immediate. It also needs to be accessible. That's for me was a big shocker. Like we're a software company. Our platform relies on an email that you receive. You need to log in through that. They're not checking email. Everybody had work emails, but they would never check the email. Why? Because they're extremely busy, right? So when you design a program for like a hospital healthcare environment, you need to look at multiple ways to access the program, not just email. You need to look at their tools that they use. For example, MS Teams, Microsoft Teams, if they use Slack, if they use Google, you need to allow those different entry points into the system. In our software, we actually have a way where you can scan a QR code and just submit a form to give auto recognition. That was massively popular because literally phone, scan, send recognition versus logging in, what's my password and everything, right? So you need to look at those points, being accessible. And then finally, simple. And this is the biggest one. And I think it's across every industry, but this one more specifically, it's even more important. But if it takes more than a minute, it's not realistic. And I'm talking about a hospital here, but a software company, a tech company, same thing. If it takes more than a minute, people probably will not just do it. We will not do it, right? So the takeaway here is it's not about the willingness of somebody wanting to give out a recognition, right? Because it's amazing to give a recognition. We're all humans, we're all good people. It's just natural to give a recognition. It's about designing for the reality of how people actually work. So whenever you're designing these programs, it's probably you're designing a program for your own company. You're probably working in your department, but start poking around different departments so that you can see the different environments. And then based on that environment, you gather feedback so that you have a program that will adapt to all of those environments within your organization, right? So this one, frontline heavy, healthcare company, nobody's on the computer. Now, on the flip side, let's think about a fully remote team, global team, completely different environment, but a very similar challenge, very similar challenges. In here, the issue isn't access, it's mostly visibility. Why? Because people aren't seeing the great work that's happening in real time. We are a fully remote company. Jenna could be speaking with other team members. I have absolutely no clue. The only thing I know is I could see Jenna's calendar. So I kind of know what she's doing, right? But if something's happening, I need that visibility, right? So recognition becomes one of the main ways to create a connection across an organization, specifically if you're fully remote. So some of the things that we need to consider for a fully remote global team, first off, social and engaging. Drive connections through likes, comments, boosting, sharing photos, gifts. We naturally live in a world of social, social engagement, social connectivity. Everybody uses TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. We need to have that embedded as part of the program because people want to engage. It's not only recognition, it's engaging within the recognition itself, right? The other very important one, and sometimes people don't think about this when it's the global rewards. You have rewards available in North America, perfect. Rewards available in Asia could be completely different, right? Rewards available in India, completely different. Different currencies. $10 in the US, it's very similar, different to $10 in India, right? So you need to think about all those aspects whenever you plan these outs. And if you have a program that delivers these sort of meaningful rewards globally, that's perfect for that sort of team. Integrated everywhere. Make sure it's embedded to every single tool you have available, Slack, Teams, email, everything, because fully remote, you need to be able to access everywhere. And tech companies tend to be very quick, at doing things. So the quicker you have accessibility to something, the better. And then live insights, action. And this was very, I learned a lot from our customers and from tech customers. It's crazy to see how embedded they are into the actual insights of the program, where managers would literally every day look at our dashboards and see, okay, I haven't recognized these members of my team. I need to recognize these others. This is how my team's doing. It's because they're fully remote. They want that visibility live, that to feed into those insights getting there. So as you can see, two completely separate environments, four pillars that are pretty different. Just whenever you design these sort of things, these sort of programs, just make sure you think about those environments. Once you do all this, great work will stay visible within your programs. And I'll pass it on to you, Jenna.
Awesome. Thanks, Rod. Really great things to cover there. So this is one of the most important shifts we see with successful programs. So it's this idea of where your recognition program lives. And so recognition, it needs to enter through the front door. So this means that it needs to live where employees are already working, like Rod already spoke to. I think in addition to that too, I think also knowing what your employees want. So, you can survey your staff. I think it's really important to understand what do the employees really want out of a recognition program. Let's ask the team, let's see what people want and kind of design the program around that as well. And again, if it's not part of the natural flow of work, it's just not going to become a habit. And so, no matter how well designed the program is, on the front door side, this looks like recognition happening in tools people already use. So, like what Rod already spoke to, Teams, Google, Slack, any integrations that people are in every day. If your recognition program can live in there, it's going to be more engaging and people are more willing to use it because it feels like that natural part of the day. Um, and on the flip side of that, in the back door, this is where programs will tend to lose traction. So standalone HR portals, really complex platforms or people having to go to like a bunch of different spots in order to get through the recognition process. Like Rod already spoke to as well, separate systems that people have to use to log in. Extra steps is going to cause friction and engagement is just going to drop off. We see it all the time. And so a simple example I can give, if I can recognize a teammate directly in Teams. Let's say I'm using Microsoft Teams every day. If our recognition program is directly integrated into Teams, I can go into there very easily and very instantly to recognize my colleague or shout somebody out. Maybe I just finished a project with somebody. But if I have to leave Teams, log into somewhere else and fill out a form or whatever it is, I probably won't do it, or I at least won't do it often. And so the goal is to remove friction and meet employees where they already are. And in addition to that, getting employees to really engage with like automated reminders in those systems as well, set up so that things are more visible for the employee.
Before we go to the next slide, Jenna, your comment on having accessibility within Teams so you can recognize there. Some of the
Yes.
things that we normally see in programs is they launch a new program. It's a new software, a new tool, a new way to log in. MS Teams is connected. The first months of when the program is launched, employees tend to use Teams. But then they start poking into the actual software itself because it's the full-on suite where you can then
Yeah.
redeem rewards, comments, like, and all that. So having accessibility, it's gonna open that door up for people to start changing their habit a little bit towards where you want them to go to. So it's having that ability to have that accessibility there. So
Yeah, absolutely. Like for me, I love to go to the platform, but for somebody in IT, they want to be in Microsoft and just quickly do things, right? So it's
yeah,
having flexibility in how employees can engage and really just a part of the natural day already.
yeah.
Um,
Awesome.
awesome. I think we're going to get into we're going to share some daily watering framework. I'll pass over to you, Rod, for this one.
Thanks, Jenna. So everybody, please pay attention to this slide because I think this is one of the key ones. In the comments, I saw multiple people mention they don't have programs. They're thinking of launching programs. So for everybody that's thinking of a program that's either not working, or you want to launch a new program, or you want to relaunch or revamp your program, this is the framework that you want to look at to start. There's a whole bunch of planning that needs to happen, but this is how you start, right? So when you look at the programs that actually work, these four things should always be present. First, it needs to be easy. As we mentioned multiple times before, it has to take seconds to give out recognition. There shouldn't be friction, right? You need to introduce a system that's easy to use and frictionless, right? Frequent. This shouldn't be a once in a year thing. It needs to happen regularly. The program doesn't need to only work and give out a recognition to Jenna when it's her birthday and she hits her 10-year, 5-year, 20-year milestone, right? Probably Jenna's not going to be here for the next when she hits her 10-year mark, right? So make sure this isn't a one-time thing, right? So frequent. Third one, social. Yeah. Recognition shouldn't just be sent. That's it, right? It should be seen by multiple team members, by different departments, by the C-suites, right? It should be seen by everybody and engaged by everybody. The social piece of it, right? Things like comments, likes, share visibility, being able to tag people. Jenna received the recognition. I'm going to tag Becca. Hey, Becca, check this out. Look at the amazing thing that Jenna did, right? That social part is going to make everything easier for you in your program. And this is probably the most important one in the flow of work. If it doesn't happen where your people already work at, it will not become a habit. And remember how I mentioned at the beginning of the session, habit is our word for today. I'm going to do it again. If this doesn't happen where employees work, it will not become a habit. So
Yeah.
if you follow this daily watering framework, this is where you will see that shift from a program that exists to a program that people actually use. So
Mhm.
everybody take a screenshot of this. I don't know if Becca, we're gonna send this to everybody, but this is
We
gonna
can
be your
include it.
framework. Yeah.
Yeah. I think too, what I would add here is this is framework, but this is also something to reflect on. So, thinking of your current program today, or if you're thinking about a program, these items here, just kind of go through them and reflect on if this framework is in your program already, or if it's something that sparks ideas. One thing I wanted to add too, just to the frequency part, like not just at annual milestones, but more frequently, it can be shout outs across teams, but it could also just be like, congratulations on completing your onboarding into the company. Or, like, congratulations on finishing your safety training. Like, you can tie it to so many different things and so many different motions you might have going on into the organization. So it's not just necessarily having to shout people out, but it's also engaging with what's the company doing? Who can we shout out for getting things done? And yeah, it goes, above and beyond that. Awesome. Thanks, Rod. We can go to the next slide. So yeah, if there's one thing that we can take away from, what we've covered today, as we've already spoke to many times at this point, recognition shouldn't be an event, it should be a habit. It should be built into your systems. It should be built into your operational workflow, behaviors, what the company's trying to accomplish. When recognition is easy, frequent in the workflow, it's going to stop feeling like a program and start feeling more like how the team operates. It's going to feel more part of the company and part of the daily experience. And so you really start to see this in really strong programs. And so, if something good happens, people recognize it right away without thinking twice. It just like it becomes second nature for people. And there's an example I wanted to give. There is an organization in the food service. And so some recognitions programs will have like a points aspect to them. And this specific food service company calls their points tacos. So it's also really about like branding your recognition program to your organization and the things that make sense for you. Calling, different parts of the program, calling them things that like align with your company. So for example, we're not going to call points, we're going to call them tacos. It just makes it a little bit more fun. So, when we see that, we know that the program is really, really working for people. Feels more native to the organization and not just like an external tool that like people are kind of in and kind of out of. It's like, oh, yes, like this feels like part of our day. And so the goal is not to just launch a program, but it's to build something that people will use consistently and for your program to become more like second nature. Okay, yes, recognition checklist. So we kind of wanted to wrap up more of this content with something to leave you with, something that's practical that you can take away and start applying right away. And so you can just think of this as like a simple checklist when you're evaluating your current program in addition to the framework, or if you're thinking about launching one. And so first, is recognition accessible where your employees already work? And feel free to answer in the chat too to any of these checklist questions if you wanted to share. Second, can everybody participate? Not just managers. I'd be very curious if you have a program in place, is everyone involved or is it just managers? And third, is it taking seconds and not minutes for the employee to be able to recognize or get into the program? And fourth, is great work visible to the whole team? Finally, does it happen daily and not just annually? So if you could confidently say yes to these items, I would say you're in a very strong position to build a program that people actually use. Would love to hear from people in the chat. And Rod, like if you had anything to add here, would love to hear from you as well.
Yeah. On the fourth one, sorry, the manager recognition, can any employee give a recognition, not just managers? This is a very important for me because everybody should be able to participate in a recognition program. So just make sure accessibility. I saw a question from, give me 1 second. Let me
There's a
just,
lot of good questions in here.
really good question.
Yeah.
Where is it? But it was around the manager recognition. They don't want to do it.
Yeah, like the
Eh,
buy-in essentially. And yeah, exactly. They don't want another thing.
Another thing to do.
Yeah.
Yes. And this is why I wanted to touch on that specific point is yes, managers often are doing a lot more work. They're a lot more busier, right? So if you allow others to give a recognition, employees, they don't heavily rely on a manager to actually give that out. So the recognition will happen naturally, and managers will start to kind of like trickle in to the program itself because they're going to see all the amazing recognition. And I'll give you a very specific example internally in our platform. We actually use our own software, right? So as a manager, we sometimes managers will not give out recognition, but employees will. But we have a function where you can actually boost recognition. So
Yeah.
Jenna receives a recognition, our CEO can go in there and boost the recognition. Just a quick way to acknowledge that recognition and give out more points, more recognition for that employee. So those sort of things, having that ability there, having notifications whenever one of your direct reports is recognized, it incentivizes the manager to go in, right? So as long as your tools have that door open for managers to start that engagement piece, you're going to be in a really good place because managers not recognizing, I think, is one of the biggest problems that we have in programs, and it's just having a program that's designed to help with that, right? And then naturally, it's going to start happening. Awesome. So yeah, I think that's it. Now we're gonna have even more fun. We love to do this. So I'm hoping everybody was paying attention. So we're gonna do a giveaway. So now everybody needs to pay even more attention. Yeah. This, by the way, is becoming kind of like a mandatory part of our agenda every single time we do recognition week. I think Becca can attest to that. So if you were paying attention to this session, it's going to be super easy for you, right? We're going to show three questions, and the first person that answers the questions in the chat will win a prize, right? Okay, everybody's ready? Can everybody give me a thumbs up in the chat just to make sure? These things happen in seconds. That's why I'm asking. We're all good to go? Let's see. Ready? Yeah, okay, perfect. So, question number one. What is one problem most recognition programs have? Oh boy.
You didn't even finish reading and people were already
Yeah,
answering. This is
Becca.
so
Yes.
fast.
Okay.
Becca will be able to
Yeah.
see who the first people were to answer.
Yes. I'm
Yeah.
gonna
Yeah.
have to download the chat after and I'll email the
Yes.
winners.
Yeah, and we'll send out direct
Yeah.
emails. So, yeah.
This was way quicker than every time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
People know
Awesome.
their stuff.
Yeah. Everything's recorded, so don't worry. The first person that answered, we're gonna reach out to you. Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Question number two. Is everybody ready for question number two? Yes? Thumbs up? Yes? Okay. Perfect. Question number two. Who should be able to give recognition? There we go. Wow.
Oh no.
It's
That's
amazing to see how,
awesome.
yeah. Okay. Awesome.
And everyone is not a short word. Like everyone's typing
I
so
know.
fast.
I
Yes.
love this.
The typing speed is insane.
It's
Yeah.
insane.
I
Yeah.
better learn to type faster.
You got this, Brian.
Yeah.
Perfect.
We believe
Okay.
in you, Brian.
One more question. Is everybody ready? Thumbs up. Thumbs up. Yep. Perfect. Okay. What are the four steps of our daily watering framework?
Oh,
That one's trickier.
a lot more
Four
typing.
steps.
Do they have to say
Yeah,
all four? Yeah, they
I
have to say
see.
all
It's
four,
coming.
right?
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah,
Wow,
I
that's
knew it.
awesome.
You needed to type a couple more characters, so yeah, it makes sense. It was going to be a little bit challenging. Okay, awesome. Perfect. Well, that's pretty much it for today.
Yeah, that brings us to the end. I think we have like a little bit of time for a couple questions.
Yeah.
This was a really full conversation, so thank you everyone for being
Hmm.
here. But happy
Let's
to
go
answer.
back to some of the comments that were made previously, actually. It was all really good
There's
discussion.
so
And
many. Yeah.
yeah, and I think there was one question that we actually run into a lot where someone was asking, let me just scroll up and look. Avis was asking, what if the leader responsible for recognizing is not confident with using technology? I know you all work with like a bunch of different organizations with different demographics where, some people might be more savvy, some people might not. And so, Rod and Jenna, what have you seen with that? Like, what would you say to that?
So, yeah, make sure when you pick a program, make sure the program is easy to use, right? And I can attest to our own software, it's ranked number one, easy to use. So yeah, that's one thing. Then the other thing for having the ability to give a recognition, typing in the name of somebody, typing in the recognition message itself. Often we see employees will create, sorry, programs will create awards for you to pick specific behaviors. I'll give you a very specific example. You're working at a restaurant, right? You're a restaurant business, and there's three core behaviors that you want to recognize: quality of food, right? Service, and then teamwork. Instead of having a manager to go in and type in the message and everything, giving them the tool to just literally click on the award that they want to recognize because they're already recognizing that behavior. So creating those sort of like little shortcuts for your staff members is it's going to go a long way. And also the education piece. Onboarding, make sure you include how the program works. Ask people during their onboarding as well. How do you like to be recognized? How comfortable are you with recognition software? And to do ongoing training as well, right?
Mhm. Yeah, it's really easy. It's very accessible to make recognition programs nowadays much more customizable. So to understanding the best way that that employee works, and then helping them use the platform in that way that works well for them. Because there's, like Rod already said, there's lots of different ways a platform could be set up to cater to, all different levels of technical savviness as well. And, I think too, what I had spoke to before, just about surveying your staff and really finding out what people want in a recognition program, how they want to use it, and then bringing all that information to the conversation when you are picking a program or working on building a program with other people or team members.
I will just add too, recently it was very nice of Marlisa, one of our CSMs, to let me tag along on one of her launches. And so we went to
Mhm.
the launch to kind of just set up a booth and tell people, it's launching today. Do you need any help? Like, come find us and we'll help you set it up. And there were a few people who came up to me and said, like, oh, I'm not very good with technology. Like, can you help me get this set up? Like, show me how to use it just so, because there were people they really wanted to recognize. And so I felt like it was like once they got it going, it was pretty good. But then they really like did want to participate, even though they knew that they had never used technology like this before. And so that was also very lovely to see as well. Yeah, she was telling us a story about how there was this one it was like a frontline place, and she was saying that there was this one girl that she's been training, and that she's never in the 20 years seen someone pick up the stuff so fast, and so she really wanted to like give a recognition for that. And so yeah, that was a very sweet moment seeing
And
recognition
if you
go.
think about it, Becca, like if you're able to use Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, if it's easier than that, you have the problem that you need. And a lot of softwares out there are super easy to use, including our own. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I think we really did try to model it after like social media, just because like it's what we all use, right? Like there's no point like fixing a wheel that's not broken. I don't know if that's a saying, but something along those lines.